Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is?
Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. At least that's what you'll hear from Vaas Montenegro, the subject of today's video. You see, Vaas Montenegro is one of the main antagonists in Far Cry 3, and his success as a villain still shines through today. So much so, people actually think he quoted the real definition of insanity. He didn't. The real one is here on the screen. But what made his character so special? What difference does he make as a villain that stands out to the audience instead of just being some over-the-top coked out pirate? To get into it, we need to talk about two things: the psychology of fear and the person behind the voice, Michael Mando. Let's start with the voice actor who brought Vaas's insanity to life with a shell-shocking performance. Mando is a decently well-known actor who's been in multiple shows and movies, including one that gets quoted in every video essay ever. Or at least the spin-off of one. The 6-time nominated actor graces the players with his impressive performance in Far Cry 3, showing what caused him to become so successful in the first place. His most famous role, Nacho Vargas from Better Call Saul, shows a different version of his insanity. Mando transforms the stereotypical view that is applied to drug dealers, cranks it up a notch, and puts a different spin to it. Now, I am no acting expert. Hell, I can barely remember my lines for these videos, but when we compare Nacho Vargas' character to another popular depiction of a drug king, we see some large differences. Tuco Salamanca is the more extreme and loudmouth version of Nacho Vargas, a character that is unpredictable and unstable in any scene that he's in, as long as he's high on meth. But come on, this is Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul we're talking about. There's always meth. However, Vargas is seen as more of his handler or a calmer right-hand man. A more methodical and ingrained sense of power and control flows through his character as Tuco Salamanca takes the main stage for the insanity show. This could not be more different in Far Cry 3. In Far Cry 3, we see a different version of Mando altogether, a version that predates his role of Nacho Vargas by 2 years. A Mando who gets to be the main villain front and center, at least until the game pointlessly kills him off and ruins any tension you had while playing. But before we had one of the most bland villains that was destined to fail in Hoyt, we had Vaas Montenegro. The game starts off with Jason's group of friends skydiving, enjoying paradise, and ultimately getting captured into a pirate-led human trafficking ring, where they would sell you to the highest bidder if your ransom wasn't paid to them, or they'd just kill you. This immediately removes the slow burn approach from Vaas to be integrated as a villain. An approach used often in a lot of forms of media where a villain is shown slowly becoming worse and worse until the heroes of the story have no choice but to take them down. Far Cry 3 opts for the shell shock factor, but in all things there must be balance. And if we're gonna have a well-established villain at the beginning of the game, it makes sense that we have a well-established hero to go along with him. This is where I introduce you all to Grant Brody, the only hope you have of surviving this mess, and the game makes that very clear. So much so that the game describes him as an all-American, good-looking, killer work ethic, and nuanced social skills carrying gentleman who was in the army and captain of multiple swim teams. It even says that as the eldest son of his household, missing a father, Grant protects his friends and his brothers. In the game's tutorial, you play as his nothing younger brother Jason Brody as he slowly guides you through your escape from Vaas's custody. Grant kills when needed, never flinches in the face of danger, and takes the brunt of the responsibility of getting his friends and family out of this situation. I remember as a player being excited to see this duo only grow stronger as Jason gets caught up to speed with his older brother. But then, Grant gets shot in the neck, and the player is only given one option: to apply pressure to the wound. But he's bleeding through your hands, Vaas is in the background yelling, and you need to keep applying pressure to the wound. It's not working, Vaas keeps monologuing, and it's pointless. No matter how hard you try, your older brother and your only chance at surviving this mess dies in your hands. This is where Vaas's sadistic nature rears its head for the first time. He toys with Jason and gives him a head start on his chase. To Vaas, this is a game, because you were already dead the second you got captured by his men. And to him, there's no changing that fact, so there's no harm in playing with his food while he still can. Mando pulls no punches in his delivery as Vaas, perfectly capturing the personality of a mass serial killer only interested in finding his next hit of dopamine. Whether it's from killing, drugs, or hunting down Jason through the woods, it's all just a game to him, and Mando delivers this effect perfectly. Now let's talk about the psychology of fear for a moment. According to psychological research, fear is a primal emotion that involves a universal biochemical response and a high individual emotional response. Fear is there to help keep us safe from dangerous foes or to prevent us from even getting near them in the first place. What's important to remember is that fear is a survival mechanism. It's a part of our brains there to make sure that we stay alive and not die at the hands of a hungry lion looking to tear us to shreds. So the reaction we see from Jason at the face of this monstrous psycho is totally valid and I'd say extremely justified. We saw Grant enter fight mode earlier, and now we're experiencing Jason enter flight mode. But it's clear that Vaas isn't doing this just for show either. Throughout your journey on this island, you'll find tapes and recordings showing his sadistic nature ruling his very action, almost as if he's in competition with himself to be more fucked up than the last time you saw him. The way he plays with the hostages, forcing a response from each of them, and becoming enraged when this practice is interrupted, is a different level of psychosis. By the way, I will not be diagnosing Vaas Montenegro in this video. Many facets of his personality are overplayed and the rest is simply a lot to take in. To make this video more simple, I will be showing you the facts and you can come to your own conclusion about him. But do let me know what you come up with in the comment section below. Anyway, why is fear so important in this story? Well, it's because that's the primary tool that Vaas uses against Jason to get into his head. I don't think it was a coincidence that Vaas shot Grant and not Jason. I think Vaas was able to size up both of them pretty well and saw that Grant was going to be more of an issue to him than Jason. Shooting Grant in front of him was purely for the mind games, followed by a long monologue that ends with him letting Jason run away. Vaas did this because he thought that it would shatter Jason's mental, making it impossible for him to ever avenge his brother or walk away from this island alive. While Vaas was right about shattering his mind, he was wrong about what that would do to Jason and the effects that it would have on him. You see, instead of giving up and putting two in the back of his throat, Jason rallied behind his own sense of insanity and used that to kill Vaas. This unfortunately leads us to the downfall of Vaas Montenegro. While I may not be too happy about it, it did happen. However, there is something we can learn from his death. His hubris and his arrogance is what cost him his life. Vaas underestimated Jason from the very beginning, playing with him, egging him on, only making Jason more determined to kill him in the end. Yet there's one person in this story that we haven't mentioned yet who plays a very important role. Vaas's sister, Citra. I can't believe I have to make another one of these warnings, but this is a disclaimer against heavily implied incestual tones, as Vaas is extremely infatuated with his sister to the point of obsession. I don't believe it ever arises to the point of sexual attraction, but this still may be a trigger for some, so consider yourself warned. So what is the relationship between Vaas and his sister? He was particularly close to his sister Citra and mentions that the first time he killed was for her. He would commit violent acts against anybody who gained her affection, such as a man who he caught with Citra in bed. Oh boy. This is starting to sound a little bit too familiar. Why do I always do this to myself? All incestual comparisons aside, why is Citra relevant in this story? Well, her relationship with Vaas is what drove him to the mental state we find him at the beginning of the game, and her betrayal of him to help Jason was ultimately the reason why he was killed. Citra was the person holding all of Vaas's cards from the very beginning, and once she had no use for him, she dispatched Jason to get rid of him. In conclusion, Vaas was a deeply troubled man, who relied on his sister's love, affection, and validation to fuel his murder fits, kidnapping ring, and drug usage. While I hate pinning everything onto one person for the actions of another, there's no denying that Vaas wouldn't be the psycho killer we knew him as if it weren't for his sister. Let me know down below what you thought of Vaas Montenegro. Was he a beautifully executed performance by a phenomenal actor who brought a deeply conflicted character to life, or your run-of-the-mill murder hobo bad guy? And let me know if there's anyone else you want to see a psychological video on. That's it for today, folks. Remember, if you have repressed sexual feelings for one of your siblings, seek therapy, keep it in your pants, and I'll see you all later.